Hey BookTube, here's my November wrap-up. I'm Jen and I talk about audiobooks, and I thought I would run down the stuff I read in November and just tell y'all about it. I'm going to start off with some YA books that I read, the first of which was a trilogy, a dystopian, and it's called Slated, and it is Slated and Fractured and Shattered. These are all by Terry and narrated on audio by Catherine Drysdale, who was excellent. This is set in the UK, and Catherine Drysdale is an English narrator that did not fall into any of the traps that I don't like from British narrators. She didn't sound like a BBC newscaster, which to her huge credit was really refreshing. This is all about kids who have their memories erased and have to start over again. And so it's your standard dystopian, you know, where there's a big evil government in place, and you know the bad guys have to be defeated by the one special snowflake. But it really is very underrated, and I liked it a lot. I ended up giving Slated 4 stars, and then Fractured, which is the second book, I gave 5 stars because it was 4.5 rounded up, and then Shattered I ended up giving 4 stars. I think that it could easily have been a 5-star series with just a few changes, but it is a debut series by Terry, who is highly underrated as an author, and this is a highly underrated series. So if you like YA dystopian, you should give this one a try. I finally finished the Tempest series by Julie Cross. Now I had listened to these first 2 books a long time ago, like a couple of years ago, and the 3rd book was never out on audio. So finally it came out, and so I did re-listen to the first 2 books, and then I listened to the 3rd. And this is YA sci-fi, and it's all about time travel. And the books are Tempest, which I gave 4 stars, Vortex, which I also gave 4 stars, and Time Storm, which I also gave 4 stars. These are the upper ends of 4 stars. I have to say that Julie Cross is a highly underrated author, just like Terry, and this is a highly underrated YA series. If you like time travel and YA, then you really like this one. I was so pleased with what she did with the ending. And I have to say that the narration by Matthew Brown is excellent. Excellent. He just embodies the main character of Jackson so well. It's really, really good. So loved that one. And then I started a new series. I kind of wish I had waited until it was finished, but I've started it and I'm into it now, and I'll probably wait till the 3rd book comes out to finish it, but it is The Becoming of Noah Shaw. This is book 1 in the Shaw Confessions, and it's narrated on audio by Joe Jameson, who is a Brit. Well, the main character, Noah Shaw, is also a Brit. And so aside from a couple of mispronunciations, I think that Joe Jameson was great. He especially did one of the American characters really, really well. I think it was a very good choice to choose a Brit to do the narration on this one, instead of choosing an American who could maybe do a fair British accent but would end up doing all the American accents well. Well, they just did the reverse, and I think that was a good idea. This is a follow-up series to the Mara Dyer series, and it has the same flavor, the same tone, the same bizarre stuff going on. So it was good. If you liked Mara Dyer, you'll like this, and like I say, I'm probably going to wait to finish the series until all 3 books in it come out and whatever novellas come in between. So yeah, I ended up giving this one 3 stars. In terms of new adult contemporary, I picked up The Impossible Vastness of Us by Samantha Young. This is narrated on audio by Brittany Presley, who always is great with YA contemporary. She does a lot of it, and she just narrates it so well. She's always able to really get the tone, the feel of the book, the personality of the main character. It was all done really well, and I always enjoy her. So it's nice to know that she's a narrator that I can expect that I will like what she does. The book, I ended up giving it 3 stars. It is full of a lot of angsty social issues, dealing with a girl who is from kind of middle class, lower middle class, and her mother marries a very wealthy man, and so it's about her adapting to a very wealthy lifestyle that her new life is surrounded by. So pretty interesting. I think if you like that kind of thing, you will like it a lot better than I did. I just thought there was a little too much going on. Yeah. I picked up Geekarella, which is by Ashley Poston and narrated from 2 points of view by Eileen Stevens and Tristan Morris. Really liked this. This was very, very cute. And it is a retelling of the Cinderella story. And I liked Eileen Stevens' narration a lot. Tristan Morris, not so much. I don't think that he really captured the character very well. And I think some of that has to do with the fact that this is a very diverse book with a lot of racially diverse characters. And I think that sometimes you can hear that in the narration, and it just didn't reflect that. So overall, I really liked the story, though, and the narration didn't deter from that at all, or didn't take away from that at all. And I ended up giving it 4 stars. Lastly, with YA, I listened to I'll Be Yours. This is by Jenny B. Jones, and it was narrated by Laura Darrell. I didn't really know anything about Laura Darrell. I just assumed she was one of those narrators that self-published authors grab because they think, oh, she's going to be good. She was good. She was excellent in this book. I loved this book. I really did. It's about a girl who, well, the narration was stellar. And it's about a girl who lives in a town with her family. Her dad is a football coach for a pretty widely known university in a small college town. And she decides, she's abused. She was put in foster care, and this family took her in and then ended up adopting her. And the family is tight-knit. The parents are great. The thing I liked about it the most was the fact that it has such a theme of forgiveness and trust. And I loved that. I loved that it kept hammering home the idea that people are going to fail you, and you have to trust that you can trust them again. And, you know, although trust has to be earned and forgiveness has to be given, it's a process, but it's always the right thing to do. I loved that. I loved the fact that the characters mentioned that they went to church, and that was an important thing in their lives. You know, I always think that's important because it's important in my life. So loved it. Gave it 5 stars. Really enjoyed it. Okay, now let's talk about sports romance. This is both adult and new adult romance, but it all has to do with sports. Starting with Under the Lights. This is by Shannon Stacy, and it's narrated by Carly Robbins. It is book 1 in the Boys of Fall series. This was kind of a miss for me because it really wasn't about football as much as it was about people who, guys who have graduated from high school, gone on, they're in their mid to late 20s, and now they have to come back and play this exhibition game of football for the coach. And for the town and the high school, that the sports programs are failing for lack of funds. So yeah, whatever. You know, it just didn't have nearly as much to do with football as I would have liked. And so I only ended up giving that one 2 stars. Change of Heart is by M.E. Carter, and it is narrated from 2 points of view by Jacob Morgan and Kirsten Lee. It is book 1 in the Heart duology, and Jacob Morgan is Zachary Weber. So right there, he's always fantastic. He just is always fantastic. The guy knows what he's doing in terms of narration, so he was just fantastic. How many times can I say fantastic? He was fantastic. Kirsten Lee was also very good, and this is a wonderful story about a football player who is a defensive end, and the thing I liked about it was that these weren't perfect people in this romance. It has to do with him, and he describes himself as a very big block of a man. So he's tall and he's big, but he's a big block. Like, he's not got the 8-pack and the wide shoulders and the whole, you know, I mean, that's not who he is. He's one of the guys that comes in and takes out all the other guys, you know. So I loved that. I loved one of the secondary characters. The love interest is a woman who is in her early 30s and has a young son. She is widowed, so she has the body of a mom. that's one of the most wonderful things about this book, was that the characters were very realistic. And so I loved that, really enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars. I picked up the Matchmaker's Playbook, which is book 1 in Wingmen Inc. series by Rachel Van Dyken. It was narrated by Jeremy York, and it was so good. Oh my gosh, one of the absolute best new adult romances that I've read as yet this year. Jeremy York just was incredibly good. He just really captured the main character here, who is a guy who was drafted by the NFL, and before he could even start playing, he got hit by a car in a freak accident, and it messed up his knee, and now he can't play anymore. Well, he had already gotten signed on early and has this $10 million signing bonus, plus his parents were wealthy before they died and left him all their money, so he's a rich kid. And he decides he's going to go back and finish college, because he was a sophomore in college when he got drafted by the NFL. So he does, and he decides he's going to start a secret dating service called Wingmen Inc. This guy is so entertaining, so incredibly entertaining. I laughed so much through the whole book. The love interest is kind of a klutz, and yet she just captures his heart as she captured my heart too. So I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I gave it 4 stars, and I immediately picked up the sequel, which is The Matchmaker's Replacement, also by Rachel Van Dyken, and this time narrated by Jeremy York and Carly Robbins, both of whom were absolutely stellar. This follows the business partner of the guy in the first book, and the guy is a computer genius and too smart for his own good. And it's just another romance, and it was so good, so funny. The observations that these guys make about girls in general were just priceless. So loved those 2 books. Highly recommend them. The Year We Fell Down is book 1 in the Ivy Years series by Serena Bowen, and it is narrated by Saskia Marleveld and Nick Podell. Now with this one, the narration by Nick Podell was incredibly good, but Saskia Marleveld, I think, completely missed it when it came to capturing the personality of the main character. Main character here is a hockey player who has been hurt. She was in a game and got hit by a puck and ended up with like a hematoma on her spine, and now she can't walk. She can walk with crutches and braces, but she's in a wheelchair most of the time. And so it's the story of her romance with a hockey player across her college dorm hall. And he is a hockey player who has broken his leg. And so it's the story of their romance. He's already involved with a girlfriend, so you've got that going on. And this girl, the main character, was kind of I mean, she's a jock. She doesn't care about how her hair looks and how much makeup she's got on. And she doesn't wallow around with a broken heart all the time, or, feeling sorry for herself. And Saskia Marleveld just didn't give her enough of a, solid, strong personality, I didn't think. So yeah, kind of a little bit of a fall down on the narration, but the story was still good. And I think it's worthy of continuing with the series, so I ended up giving that one 3 stars. Major Misconduct is book 1 in the Chicago Aces hockey series by Kelly Jamieson, and it's narrated by Kasha Kensington. The narration was great. The story is about a hockey team, and it follows one of the hockey players who is French-Canadian. And I was kind of impressed with Kasha Kensington's ability to handle that French-Canadian accent. I thought it was pretty good. It was a little racier than I would have liked, but, this is new adult. What are you going to do? So I ended up really liking it. Anyway, I gave Major Misconduct 3 stars, and then I followed it up with Stay, which is Wags, book 2 by Serena Bowen, narrated by Jacob Morgan and Lucy Rivers. And oh my gosh, it was so good. The narration, Jacob Morgan is Zachary Weber, so of course it was incredibly good. Lucy Rivers, not so much, but she was overshadowed by Zach Weber / Jacob Morgan. So, it was just really good. This is the story of a hockey team and it's book 2 in the series. WAGs stands for Wives and Girlfriends, and it refers to the suite where the wives and girlfriends go to watch the hockey games. And so I liked this one a lot. It was a great romance. It was a little racier than what I would prefer. Yeah, a little more story would have been nice. A little less, steam. But, I just skipped over the parts that I didn't love as much, and I really ended up enjoying it a lot. In terms of regular romance, I picked up Dear Erin by Mariana Zapata. Love Mariana Zapata. This is a standalone, and it's narrated by Callie Dalton and Teddy Hamilton, both of whom were incredibly good. Callie Dalton does most of Mariana Zapata's books, and I have loved every one that she has done. Teddy Hamilton was also really, really good, and this is an interesting story about a girl who is kind of a late bloomer, and she becomes a pen pal with a guy who's in the military, a soldier. And so it's the story of their romance over the internet, and it kind of handles the theme of how smart it is to get involved with someone that you've never met before, and how smart it is to trust that when you meet them. And so I really liked it. I don't think it was quite up to the standard that Mariana Zapata has set in terms of what I like in her books, but it was still good. So it's still her. And I ended up giving that one 4 stars. I picked up We Own Tonight by Corinne Michaels. This is narrated by Zach and Andy. Zach Weber and Andy Arndt, who are a great duo and 2 narrators that I always look forward to listening to a book that they have narrated together. This is, well, the narration was incredibly good. It always is. I always enjoy it. And this is the story of a man who is 42 now, and he was the member of a boy band that still continues to tour, and a woman who was a fan of the boy band, and she's 38. Now, my issue with this was that this romance, as it developed, was kind of immature. I felt like I was reading about 25-year-olds, not a 38-year-old and a 42-year-old. I just didn't translate very well. Still a good story. I ended up giving it 3 stars, but I didn't love it. Blue Flame is book 2 in the Firefighter series by Jill Shalvis and is narrated by Laura Heisler. Wasn't sure about Laura Heisler at first, but I ended up getting into the story and really enjoying it. I don't think she was an incredibly great narrator, but she was certainly good. And this was really not the story of a firefighter at all, but rather the story of a guy who owns a dude ranch and him going back to the dude ranch after he gets hurt in a fire and has to recuperate. So it's much more a story about cowboys and horses and dude ranches and all of that. So still good. I really like this series, and I'm going to continue on with the 3rd book later. Ended up giving it 3 stars. The Fox and the Hound is by R.S. Gray and is narrated by Lucy Christian and Joe Arden. Loved Joe Arden's narration. Lucy Christian, yeah, not so much. But it's really more of a stylistic thing, because I wasn't wild about her lower range for the male voices and about the way she would phrase a question as a statement. That kind of drives me up a wall, but that's a stylistic thing. The book is wonderful. It's about a woman who just will not be defeated. She's an optimist, and she just doesn't ever quit trying, even when things are at their worst. She falls for a very cranky vet who has moved to her town in Texas from Chicago after a failed relationship. And so it's the story of their romance, and it's a very sweet, cute story. Ended up loving it. I really like R.S. Gray, and I gave it 4 stars. I did have some DNFs this past month, and those were Sex, Lies, and Online Dating by Rachel Gibson, narrated by Kathleen Early. Just didn't grab me. Command Me by Geneva Lee, which is narrated by Fran Jewell. Again, yeah, no. I'm not really into the royalty romances, the prince or the king or whatever, I don't know. Good Boy, which is Wags, book 1 by Serena Bowen and Elle Kennedy, narrated by Teddy Hamilton and Tanya Eby. right combination of all the right things. I thought I was really going to like this book, but I just didn't get into the first part of it. And no, it just didn't grab me. So even though I think that the series is worth listening to, just that first part just didn't get me. Again, another sports romance hockey book. Soar, which is book 1 in the Empire Chronicles by Alyssa Rose Ivy, is narrated by Laura Darrell and James Fooey. And although I know I would have loved the narration, the story was just kind of YA, paranormal, whatever. Too many supernatural creatures for me to even care about. So I don't know. Sometimes I'm in the mood for that. Other times I'm not. And this was clearly one of the times that I was not. That's also a series with like 7 or 8 books going on. So I just did not want to get into it right now. And lastly, Turbulence, which is by Whitney G. It's narrated by Erin Mallon and Joe Arden. Again, a situation where I really know that I would love the narrators because those are narrators I really like. But the story just started out so just straight into people having sex on an airplane. And what got me about it was the attitude and the dialogue. And I just thought, no, this is not doing it for me. So no, I don't think so. So I DNF'd it. So those were all the books that I listened to and read in November, and I would love to hear your thoughts. If you've read any of them, what you thought of them. I have talked about all of them in weekly wrap-ups with Friday Reads. So I've probably talked already with you about them, but if you have any other comments, I would love to hear them. So anyway, that's it for now for me, and I will see you next time. Thanks for watching.